The Chicago Bears finished the 2023 season with a 7-10 record and missed the playoffs for the third straight year. It was a disappointing season for the Bears as they were hoping former quarterback, and now current Steeler, Justin Fields would take a big step, and unfortunately that never happened, as the Bears started out 0-4 with 3 double-digit losses before eventually falling to 2-7 through 9 games. But the Bears finished the year with a 5-3 record in their final 8 games and looked like a completely different team from the team that got killed by Green Bay in Week 1 and the team that lost by 31 points to the Chiefs in Week 3. In fact, they only allowed 93 total points over the final 6 games of the year, which equates to just 15.5 per game. And not only do they have that to build on entering 2024, but through a trade they made with the Panthers prior to the 2023 draft, they were able to acquire USC quarterback Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick in the draft. And with their own first-round pick, they selected Washington wide receiver Rome Odunze. And what has to be remembered about the Bears is this team still won 7 games last year. They were not a 3-14 team. And due to all of this, along with acquiring 6-time Pro Bowl receiver Keenan Allen to help out their young quarterback, well, it's simple. The Chicago Bears hype is real. But how will they do in 2024? Well, we're going to break it down in today's video. Now let's begin. And we are starting today's video by breaking down why the Chicago Bears hype is real and that it's not just Caleb, DeAndre Swift, DJ, Keenan, and the rest of the offense. The defense has playmakers at every level and it starts up front. Montez Sweat is a very solid player, and the pushback the Bears received from this trade initially after it happened was always funny to me because of the fact they didn't have a long-term contract in place for him when the trade was made, and not only that, but that they were going to have to pay him to make the trade worthwhile. The Bears, of course, paid Montez shortly after the trade was made, and like we've mentioned with other teams, most notably corner L'Jarius Sneed to the Titans, this idea that it's a burden to pay good players has always been baffling to me, because at the end of the day, good players help make up championship rosters. And not only do the Bears have a good player in Montez Sweat to get after the quarterback, but they also have a pretty underrated player along the defensive line in DeMarcus Walker. DeMarcus finished the 2023 season with 47 pressures, which was only behind Montez, of course, and he should be in for another good year, or at least another year where he routinely puts pressure on the quarterback. 2023 second-round pick Gervon Dexter didn't have the best rookie year by any means, but he showed flashes throughout his rookie season, and I do expect him to take a step forward this year. We often talk about how it takes interior linemen on both sides of the trenches a year or two to develop and to get accustomed to the strength of the NFL level, and I think Dexter will be a classic case of this. And he still had 29 pressures as a rookie, which, again, for a rookie defensive tackle, is a good sign moving forward. Through the middle of the defense, they are led by TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmunds, and all TJ did in his rookie year with the Bears was tally 155 tackles, 8 tackles for a loss, and even had 3 interceptions. And the Bears signing Edwards for a 3-year, $19.5 million contract last offseason proved to be one of the bigger steals from the 2023 free agent cycle. Tremaine Edmunds had a solid first year with the Bears, as he had over 100 tackles and even had a pick 6 against the Browns, but they, along with Jack Sanborn, lead this linebacking core. The secondary, on the other hand, is legitimately a no-fly zone, and they are, of course, led by Jalen Johnson, who is coming off of one hell of a year, as he had an opposing passer rating of just 33.3 when targeted, along with 4 interceptions. This also included a pick 6 against the Raiders. And yes, they had to pay Jalen this offseason, but the Bears are in a very good situation at the moment where they have a lot of good players and they have a lot of talent on the roster, all with a quarterback on a rookie contract. The Bears forced 28 turnovers last year defensively, which ranked 5th in the entire league, and I don't think that was by accident. They also finished just 12th in yards allowed as a defense, and what has to be remembered for the 2023 Bears entering 2024 is they finished 20th in points allowed per game defensively, which I don't think is a true ranking based on how their defense played for most of the year. And what I mean by this is Justin Fields threw a pick 6 in week 1 against the Packers, he threw a pick 6 against the Bucs in week 2, and threw an interception against the Chiefs in week 3 that gave them the ball at the Chicago 26 to start their drive, and you get the point. Also, Khalil Herbert fumbled within the 41-10 Chiefs loss, which also gave KC the ball inside Chicago's 30 to start a drive. And in the first 3 games of the 2023 season alone, Chicago's offense either allowed a pick 6 or gave a Patrick Mahomes team the ball inside their 30-yard line to start, which equated to 24 points right there. KC got 10 points off of those 2 Chicago turnovers, and those 24 total points within 3 games, which does not include any other offensive touchdowns allowed by the Bears, like a Jordan Hicks fumble return from the Vikings game in week 6, that could make this 31 points. Well, those 31 points would have had the Bears go from 20th in points allowed per game last year to 10th allowed in points per game last year. Those 31 points that we mentioned off of 5 plays would probably have a much bigger impact on how people feel about the Bears heading into the season. A lot of people think it's a projection with the Bears, and I don't think that's the case. Now, do I think it's a little over the top when people think Caleb Williams is automatically going to have a CJ Stroud type rookie year because he has a good supporting cast and because the defense is good? Yes, but the signs point to the Bears being a solid team and the hype being legitimate. Also lost within the Bears' points allowed per game is this is a defensive ranking, but what the points allowed per game doesn't show is the defense being set up for failure like they were countless times throughout the 2023 season. What I think is one of the more impressive things the Bears did defensively last year was only allowing 24 points to the Saints in a game where the offense turned the ball over 5 times. The Saints had 12 possessions in this game, and 7 of them started in Chicago territory. And for the Bears to only allow 24 points, and hell, for that matter, only lose this game by a touchdown, while losing the turnover battle 5-0, to me at least speaks volumes about where this defense is and how they will play in 2024. They only lost 1 player from the defense from 23 to 24, and that's defensive tackle Justin Jones, as he signed with the Cardinals in free agency. Justin was a solid player for the Bears, but his production isn't exactly irreplaceable. And as long as the Bears' offense does not set them up to fail this year, like they did countless times throughout the 2023 season, they're going to be just fine. One of my only concerns with the Bears entering the 24 season is Matt Eberflus as a head coach. Not the defensive mind or how his defense is going to play, but how he is as an in-game head coach. That's it. The Lions' collapse in Week 11 was atrocious, as Detroit was hung out to dry, yet scored 17 points in the final 3 minutes of the game to come back and win. This was also in a game where Chicago had possession of the football for over 40 minutes, won the turnover battle 4-1, and ran for over 180 yards as a team. This was versus a team that's great defensively against the run in Detroit, and that's one of my few concerns with the Bears entering this year. But even within that, you can still convince yourself that the Bears had a great end of the year with the fact they only allowed 93 points during those final 6 games. And if you want to be a true Bears hater and say, well, they played Josh Dobbs for one of those games, or Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke for another, guess what? They allowed 30 combined points against the Lions and Packers during those final 6 games, including a game against Detroit, in which they not only got their revenge, but held them to 267 yards of total offense, which was their only game all year under 330 yards of offense out of the 20 games they played, playoffs included. So, as long as Chicago does not hand the game away, whether you are a Bears fan or not, I don't know how you can't think this is a much improved team heading into 2024. I'm not worried by the loss of Darnell Mooney in free agency when they replaced him with not 1, but 2 better players in Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze. And really, outside of the Chase Claypool trade a few years back, the Bears have done nearly everything right over the past few years. Now, for the 2024 Bears offense, there is a lot to be excited about, and it's more than just Justin Fields out and Caleb Williams in. And one of the biggest reasons as to why I'm excited to watch the Bears offense this year is due to the departure of Luke Getsy and the addition of new offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. One of my biggest frustrations with the 2023 Bears, well, of many, but one of my biggest frustrations was the lack of consistency at play calling offensively. And there was one thing in particular that Luke Getsy did that not a lot of offensive coordinators did that was very frustrating last year, and that was consistently call running plays on 2nd and long, which is 2nd and 7+. On 2nd and 7+, Luke Getsy would call a run on over 40% of the play calls in that situation, and there were not a lot of other teams that did that. And when you think about the successful offenses in the NFL, like the Rams, like the 49ers, for example, they were hovering around the 23 to 25% in this range, and that's also where the Seahawks were, where Shane Waldron coached last year, and I'm eager to see the Bears be more dynamic in different situations. Not only that, but one of my other biggest frustrations with Luke Getsy was, hey, we have DJ Moore, one of the most dynamic weapons in all of football, but you know what we're going to do on this 3rd and 6? Why don't we call a good old-fashioned bubble screen? Why don't we call a good old quick screen and see what happens, and let's just continuously do this, and do this, and do this, and one more time, let's call another screen. And that was extremely frustrating over the course of a season. Now, I don't have anything wrong with screens, but to consistently call them, and Bears fans obviously know where I'm coming from as they watched all 17 games last year, it was frustrating after a while, to say the least. So whenever you have DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, and everybody available to spread the field out, well, needless to say, I am very excited to see what they can do with a quarterback that was the best prospect since Trevor Lawrence. Oh, and they also have a pretty underrated tight end in Cole Kmet, who quietly finished in the top 10 in receiving yards last year at the position. As for the Bears' run game in 2024, I don't want to say I have concerns because that is a very, very loaded word, but I will be paying attention to see what type of concepts Shane Waldron dials up. Shane Waldron comes from Seattle and they ran a lot of inside zone last year, which would be a pretty big understatement. Now, inside zone is for more bigger backs, and that's generally the type of plays that inside zone is designed for, which, as we know, DeAndre Swift is more of an outside back, and so is most of the other backs on the Bears roster. I can imagine that Shane walks in on day one and says, hey, DeAndre, I know this doesn't exactly complement your skill set, but this is my system. Get ready to learn inside zone, buddy, and if you don't want to learn it, demand a trade. I can't imagine that's how the conversation goes, so I will be eager to see how Shane kind of alters his game plan as the year goes on, but I am very excited for the 2024 Bears offense, and again, please remember, this is a team that finished 18th in points per game last year and improved across the board. They have a better running back, they have multiple better receivers, they have a better quarterback, and I also am excited to see the progression of right tackle Darnell Wright. I think there were times last year where Darnell would, in theory, give up pressures, but those pressures that Darnell allowed last year were at times due in some part to Justin Fields holding onto the ball for 4 or 5 or 6 seconds, and I think after a while, even a person of stature like myself could, if there's 8 or 9 seconds into a play, I think I could eventually at least, dip my head and run around Darnell or something to, in theory, record a pressure. So the pressures that Darnell allowed last year as a rookie weren't exactly the same as other tackles in the league, but I am very, very excited for the 2024 Bears, and if everything goes right, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they finish top 12 or top 13 in points per game this year. The Bears' rookie impact in 2024 is going to be substantial, and that's going to happen when you have not only 2 top 10 picks, but 2 top 9 picks. And the thing that needs to be remembered with Caleb Williams entering his rookie year is he was a great prospect. I don't think he was along the Luck, Manning, or Elway level. Now, I do think Caleb was the best prospect or quarterback prospect since Trevor back in 2021, but I also think there needs to be reasonable expectations for him. I don't think Bears fans should be expecting him to throw for 4,500 yards and 35 touchdowns to 6 or 7 interceptions in year 1 and to go to the NFC Championship game this year. Now, if they go to the playoffs, anything beyond that is great. Hell, getting to the playoffs for that matter in year 1 with Caleb would be great. but it is not an exaggeration to say Caleb is in the best situation a number 1 overall pick has ever been in. Not just in the past 2 or 3 years, but ever. The expectations for him from a statistical standpoint, I think should be around 3,900 or 4,000 yards, along with 23 or 24 passing touchdowns, and you would hope for single-digit interceptions, but if he has 10 or 11, that would also be fine. Now, to be completely honest, for wide receiver Rome Odunze, I don't think Rome is going to be the most productive rookie receiver. He's not going to be bad, but if I had to guess who is going to have the most receiving yards in the 2024 class, my money would be on Giants receiver Malik Neighbors, and that is of course due in large part to the situation. Malik does not have a DJ Moore or a Keenan Allen or a Cole Kmet in the same offense as him. So from a statistical standpoint, I don't think Rome's rookie season specifically is going to be as impressive as Bears fans would probably like to imagine, but I think he'll be around 60 receptions for 650 or 700 yards with around 5 or 6 touchdowns. Now, that's obviously not bad production, and no team would deny that from a rookie, let alone a first-round pick, but I don't think Rome is going to be a 1,000-yard or a 1,200-yard receiver in year 1, and I think guys over the past few years, like the Justin Jeffersons or Jamar Chases, or even Garrett Wilson going for over 1,100 yards in 2022, or of course Puka Nacua going for nearly 1,500 yards last year, those guys are not the expectation for Rome specifically in 2024, because they didn't have the other weapons in the offense that Rome specifically will have to deal with. Now, the other weapons the guys had to deal with is an entirely different conversation, and while those guys had teammates like T. Higgins or Adam Thielen, or last year Cooper Kupp for some of the year, they're not quite DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and then Cole Kmet as teammates. So the expectations for Rome this year should be lower than what people probably would imagine for a number 9 overall pick, but I still think he will be a productive player nonetheless. Kieran Amagaji was their 3rd round selection, and I will never be upset with a team selecting an offensive tackle as a depth piece in today's era with the added 17th game. So not much to say other than that, and I hope that Kieran becomes a good player for the Bears and a contributing 6th offensive lineman. The punter, Torrey Taylor, there were a lot of jokes that were made. Why would you select Caleb Williams whenever you planned to draft Torrey Taylor? And that was, pretty fun on draft weekend. He's a punter. Hopefully he is, good for being a 4th round selection. Not much to say other than that, and I know people wanted to knock the Bears for selecting a punter, but when you walk out of the draft with Caleb and Rome, not really anything else matters to me at that point because of how good of prospects Caleb and Rome are. Now, I did also like the trade up for Austin Booker, as I thought Austin was a top 120 prospect, and they got him in the 5th round, so I thought that was good value there. And like we mentioned with offensive linemen, I will never be upset with a team trading up to get depth along the defensive line and ultimately the pass rush. But the Bears' rookie impact in 2024 should, without a doubt, be amongst the best in the entire NFL. As for the Bears' schedule in 2024, yes, they have some difficult games, especially on the back stretch, like in consecutive weeks when they go to Detroit on Thanksgiving, then go to San Francisco the following Sunday. They also play at Green Bay in the Week 18 finale. But I don't think 7 to 9 wins is unreasonable for this team, and what also has to be remembered is this team won 7 games last year and improved a lot. Now, I don't think they're going to go 11-6 or 12-5 or anything like that, but their schedule really isn't all that bad, and when you take a look at it, their first 4 games are admittedly going to be tough. They play home against the Titans, who match up pretty well against the Bears, then go to Houston, then go to Indy, then come home to play the Rams. If they can come out of that stretch at 2-2, then the schedule for them gets a little easier after that, and I don't think 8 wins is unreasonable for this team. They play the Panthers, then play the Jags, then have a Week 7 bye, and then off the bye, they play at Washington, at Arizona, and versus the Patriots. And if they can win those 3 games coming off of the bye, that would set up a very interesting game against the Packers in Week 9, and Bears fans, well, you guys know you haven't really fared too well against the Packers recently, and I'm sure some Packers fans will comment in this video because they like to acknowledge how much they've owned the Bears over the past few years. But the bottom line for the 2024 Bears is I think they can win anywhere from 7 to 9 games, and if they win 9 games, and maybe even if they have a couple go their way and a couple bounces go their way, I don't think a playoff berth is unreasonable for this team. Now, to be clear, if I had to guess right now if I think the Bears are going to make the playoffs this year, I would say probably not, because I think one wild card spot will automatically go to either Detroit or Green Bay, and then one would probably go to Dallas or Philly, and then after that, it's a toss-up between several teams, and I mean several teams in the NFC. So if I had to guess right now if the Bears made the playoffs, I would say probably not, but it's not entirely out of the question for them. But the 2024 Bears are going to be a team that you don't want to mess around with, because they have the offensive firepower to get back in the game and to take over the game at any time. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 39% of people watching are subscribed and helps the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.